Feeder schools frequently arrange research projects. Emulate this by reaching out to teachers or local colleagues for mentoring opportunities. So in this case, that would mean reaching out to WinMay for that. Community impact. Genuine service or impact can be compelling. So for instance, initiating a tutoring program for underprivileged kids, or leading an environmental campaign that made a local change. Projects that showcase intellectual or emotional impact and reflection. For example, as we're going to see in the essay section. So breadth consideration. While depth is king, a touch of breadth helps show a well-rounded person. The most competitive students often balance STEM with arts, for example, a coding club and playing in an orchestra. So typically I'll see a lot of students that do have some involvement in music, and they tend to excel in academics as well. Or athletes in academics. However, avoid too much spreading thinly. Finally, for portfolio arts and sports, essentially what I tell students about sports is if you're doing sports, it can help you. If you're not doing sports, it can't hurt you. So in other words, if you are a student athlete, it's something that, if you're competitive, it can definitely help your chances. Same thing when it comes to art. Okay. Now for application strategy and essays, I'm going to focus mostly on application strategy since in a previous video, we talked about the essays. So for application strategy, we talk about college list construction. So that is something that Dr. Wan assists most students with. I also encourage students to kind of start building their own list so they can have, some idea of how a list works. Cast a wide net strategically, right? In terms of top 20 schools, categorize schools as reach, like the Ivy Plus group, match, slightly less selective, privates, public flagships. So that would be like the target schools, and safety. So solid state schools where admission is likely. So the high, backup schools. Even strong applicants usually apply to multiple reach schools. A balanced list, can be somewhere between 10 to 15 schools. That's not uncommon. Don't pull all hopes on a few Ivies. Include a mix of highly selective, moderately selective, and safe admissions. Consider geography, financial fit, and program strength as well. Now, for the timing, that's another thing that's part of application strategy. So that would be early action / early decision. Applying early can boost chances. Most top 20 schools offer either early action, which is non-binding, or early decision, which is binding. Harvard has a restrictive early action admit, and usually it's been many times its regular decision rate. So in some cases, you have an advantage of applying early. So for Brown's class, you have an early decision admit rate of 37.5% versus 4% overall admit rate. So obviously you have a significant advantage of applying early to Brown. So usually I provide students with a list that lists for the top 30 universities, what is the size of the early decision advantage or early action advantage, so that you can know whether it makes sense to apply early or not. The idea is to apply early when you have a sizable early action or early decision advantage, which is defined as the difference between acceptance rates when people apply early versus when they apply regular decision. If you have a clear first choice and can commit, early decision is a way to, early decisions when you're going to be what you want to use in that case. Early action still often use a higher admit rate than a regular decision. So what I usually tell students is figure out your early decision school and apply to early action for the rest of your schools if possible. If you don't get into your early decision one school for the first round, you can consider applying early decision 2, which is the second round of early decision, since the first one would not be binding you anymore. Demonstrated interest we've talked about. And what I want to talk about now is insider secrets, and then I'll go ahead and conclude. So for insider secrets, admissions yield management. So that means that a lot of students that are accepted end up enrolling. So for Harvard, that was over 83%, that yield. So why is that important? Because that's going to give you some insight in terms of, for example, if you are waitlisted, right? So that can give you some considerations in terms of what are your chances. So if a college's yield is very high, 80 to 90%, it means nearly everyone who was admitted intends to attend. Conversely, it means very few new students are admitted off the waitlist. So, for example, Harvard admitted only 75 waitlist students for the class of 2029. For students, this means apply early decision if you can, because colleges will want early decision admits to enroll. But if you go regular decision, expect extremely low acceptance chances once the class is largely filled. So early decision can also be a first chance at getting into a university. If you get deferred, then you'll have a second chance, but you'll be grouped with the regular decision applicant pool. So that's the difference, which is usually going to be more competitive, of course. Now, in terms of early versus regular round, at most top schools, early decision, early action applicants have dramatically higher admit rates than regular decision. For instance, Brown, we talked about already. Cornell also, they have adjusted this, but for instance, we have 60% versus regular decision 9%. There's going to be some adjustments for that in recent years. Schools fill a significant portion of their class in early decision, early action. If you are a strong candidate with a clear first choice, early decision can multiply your chances. If not early decision binding, still aim for early action at schools like Harvard's restrictive early action or Stanford's non-binding early action, and is often going to result in an acceptance rate that's several times higher than regular decision. So test submission in optional years. So we talked about that. Contacts and interviews. So your interviews, definitely if they're optional, if you get an invitation, consider doing them, because that can help you in the sense of providing additional insights into who you are and what you're about that would otherwise not be captured by your application. And also give you a chance to learn more about the school by talking to someone that graduated from there. Legacy and hooked applicants. So obviously legacy students has been a big deal, but I think the overall consensus on that is that it's still going on, but it's obviously to a much lesser extent than before, since it's been outlawed. So a school that maybe you could consider that would be like Harvard, for example. Final transcripts matter. So you definitely want to finish strong when it comes to your senior year. I know a lot of students want to slack off the second half of the year, but it is important to be consistent and try hard all the way through. And waitlist strategy. So in some cases, you want to go ahead and write a letter of continued interest if you get waitlisted from a university. And some schools also have school-specific requirements, so make sure that you're aware of those. For instance, Brown requires an introduction video. Okay, so in closing, I want to say that you want to focus on things like college research, okay, course planning, test prep, extracurricular strategy, essays, of course, interviews and campus visits, college list review, because that is literally going to be the set of colleges that you're looking at, right? Where you're going to be spending the next 4 years of your life potentially. So it's a big decision. So the more work you put into that, the higher quality list you're going to have, the happier you're going to be in the end, essentially. And of course, application workshops. So this is an example of something that we are providing to you so that you have more insight into the application process, especially for competitive students, right? So that is the idea. Our goal is to give you the most options available to you when it comes to once you've submitted your applications, and also provide you with the most up-to-date and current information on admissions trends and things like that. So the admissions process is daunting, but a strategic approach and authentic profile can help you set yourself apart. Focus on demonstrating excellence and personal growth. With preparation and perseverance, you'll put forward the strongest possible application. And that is what we're here for, to help you with that process. So thank you again, and take care.
感谢 Mr. 皮尔今天和我们的分享。你有任何的问题呢，都可以直接来咨询文美集团。美国文美集团，美国大学申请规划服务第一品牌，20年经验，万博士领衔常春藤顾问团队，中美双顾问模式服务一个学生，按照大学录取学校排名收费，与孩子形成利益共同体。华人老品牌，值得您的信赖。文美集团隆重推出 ACAP 大学专业及职业测评规划管理系统。华人升学机构首创，完美解决华人学生最大升学痛点。人工智能提前锁定大学专业方向，提前2到5年布局申请。有了专业测评系统，孩子的课程规划更清晰，活动更聚焦，文书更有故事感，大学申请更有竞争力。5到11年级学生都可以报名参加测评。文美集团1对1非营利组织成立运营领导力项目，让孩子从参与者变为领导者，真正成长、成人、成才进名校。5到11年级学生均可报名参加。文美集团社会影响力联合国网络义工课程，节省孩子时间，做名校认可的社会影响力，高大上义工。5到11年级学生均可报名参加。感谢大家的收看，我们下次再见。